Sei gegrüßt, meine Mitdenker und Trinker, as we plow on with our look at the recorded output of Motörhead. Okay, the year is 2004, therefore it must be Inferno. What's by now become their established 2-year gap results this time in the follow-up to, in my opinion, what was the somewhat lackluster effort, Hammered. On this occasion, prior to recording, the band, or at least Lemmy, met up with producer Cameron Webb. Apparently got on, and Webb indicated to Lemmy that he'd like to produce something really, really heavy. Slight social faux pas, as Lemmy took the opportunity to remind him that we are Motörhead and we play rock and roll. Well, despite that somewhat inauspicious start, they decided to work together. Apparently, things went well, but they took some time to get to know each other, the band and the producer, which they eventually obviously did, since he did produce the record. And there was on an interesting point of view, there was some disagreement about the recording level of the bass, more of which later. I suppose, they can be quite an intimidating bunch. Our favorite holy trio. But anyway, they must have, they must have worked this out, because Cameron Webb would go on to produce the rest of the records until the end of the band's career. So what exactly did we get? Well, in typical Motörhead style, there's not a ballad for an opener. It would indeed be a surprise if they ever decided to open a record, or had they ever decided to open a record with something like 1916. Yeah, or One More Fucking Time. That would indeed have been something of a shock. But no, Terminal Show on this occasion does what a good Motörhead opening song should do, and traditionally has done. This is fast, it's heavy, it's furious. It's got a punky edge to it, a certain punky energy to it, I think. Others may disagree. But yes, it is exactly what you want. It's a strong and memorable opener. And already, 3 minutes, whatever, into this, already a good feeling about this album. Sounds good. The band sound energized, motivated, enthusiastic. Interestingly, Steve Vai guests on this, plays a guitar solo. Not the most obvious choice you would have thought to guest on a Motörhead record, but just goes to show that good taste has no boundaries. They follow this up with Killers, which for me is an absolute Motörhead classic. This has got one hell of a groove to it. Great chorus. Starting to smile now while I'm listening to this. It's an earworm. It's one of you keep hearing it, humming it to yourself. This really, really strong stuff. Again, I hope they continue. This is good. And they do. They follow it up with In the Name of Tragedy, which is more metal. Again, nice chugging riff, which I suppose supplies the majority of it metal as opposed to rock and roll credentials. Really strong song. Really well constructed. Enjoying this. On to Suicide, which slows things down. Again, when I say slow things down, these are all relative terms. Just a touch. Slows things down a touch. But again, this is a really well-constructed song. But it is equally infectious. 4 out of 4. I'm happy. Okay, Boogie Time. Well, Motörhead style at least. Life's a Bitch. Which is just another superb rocker. It really is. And the smile's getting broader now when listening to this. It's simple, but it's hugely memorable. There's a simple but highly effective musical dynamics in this. It really is, and it's another earworm. It really is. Okay, then move on to Down on Me, which is, it's yet another good one, I have to say. This is, back to the more metallic approach, I suppose. Great riff, good typical Motörhead tempo, and yet another really, really memorable melody to it. And yet again, Steve Vai for the second time on this record. Takes guitar solo duties, and once again, does a fine job. In the Black, which is, I guess, in the terms of this album, is another sort of your more traditional rocker of a song. But again, you have to say, very strong compositionally. Some vocal harmonies on the chorus. Don't hear that often from Motörhead, at least. But it gives it that, extra touch or something. I don't know. It works well in the context. This is another bloody good song. All right, we move on to Fight. Just before the song starts, you can hear Lemmy on the microphone. So, will you put the bass up? Turn the bass up, I think he says, which obviously an in-joke. As I mentioned earlier, there was some disagreement between Lemmy and the producer about the recording volume of the bass. This is a bit of a thrasher, but I have to say, this album is just getting better and better. This smile has become a really broad grin by now. To be honest, my favorite song so far. However, up next, In the Year of the Wolf, and I have to say the fun continues. It really does. Another really well-constructed effort. It's your sort of standard Motörhead tempo. It's not. It's there sort of. It's not a fast nor slow. It's Motörhead tempo. I really like it, and unfortunately, in terms of the English language, I'm running out of superlatives at this point. Keys to the Kingdom. Again, slightly slower. Well, no, it's a fair bit slower, I think. But this has got one hell of a groove to it. This is real Motörhead rock and roll at its finest. Christ, you could dance to this. If you could dance. I'm sure you could. It's just, yeah. Put this on in a club, and all those, half pissed, half drugged out, unsuspecting people on the dance floor wouldn't recognize it was Motörhead and wouldn't miss a step. Wow. Again, it's another earworm, and is this now my favorite on the album? Getting close. Okay, Smiling Like a Killer. What can I say? It's another really fantastic rocker. Another great track, another great top line from Lemmy. Yeah, he really has come to the party on this record in terms of his vocal melodies and constructions. It's again, it's another really, really good song, and it's a lot of fun as well. The album finishes in somewhat untypical style with Whorehouse Blues. It's different in as much as it's different from Motörhead. In terms of construction, this is a traditional blues, perhaps a tinge of country. Dare I say that? I kind of hear it, maybe. But the point being, because it's this type of acoustic blues, it's got the same tempo, the same rhythm, the same groove, if you like, as a million and one other songs that we've already heard. It's one of the disadvantages of the blues music. It's fucking repetitive. Yeah, you've heard this 1,000 times before. Delete the vocal track, and this could be any one of tens of thousands of songs. Having said that, they obviously had fun with it, and it's more than rescued. It's very unfair. It's actually, for what it is, it's a well composed and well performed track. But what does save it, I would say, is some pretty witty lyrics from Lemmy, and and a very good vocal performance to back them up. Well, what can I say? This, after this, Hammered. Well, I was never too enamored of Hammered. Sorry. But this represents a glorious return to form. It really does. This really hits the sweet spot. And I tell you what, this is just so much fun. It's a joy to listen to it. They are obviously the way I hear it and appreciate it. They're just so much more inspired on this album. And it's just one of those things. I mean, by this stage in their career, they were, more than competent masters of their instruments. And, they'd honed their songwriting craft. Even if one's forced to admit that they did that within the confines of, the self-imposed restrictions of what they wanted Motörhead to be. They knew what they were doing, shall we say? But even with a level of technical proficiency or whatever, you have good days and bad days. Some days things just work, and some things they don't. They just don't work quite as well. On this album, everything works. They yeah, they've taken it up several notches from Hammered, which I've used the adjectives uninspired, lackluster, and compared to this, it very much is. Lemmy's lyrics are really good on this, and as I mentioned before, he's really come to the party when it comes to his contributions to the songwriting. I've said on several of these prior reviews that what, on the face of it, has been a strong song instrumentally has perhaps been let down when Lemmy hasn't really put the effort required in to either the lyrics and or the top line, the vocal melody. This is not a criticism you can make on any song on this record. He really, really is on top form. It sounds great. Cameron Webb's done a really good job. It's loud, it's full, it's well balanced. You can hear the instruments. Maybe his association was just what they needed. Maybe despite some initial conflict, out of that grew a mutual respect. One would have to assume so, given their continued, relationship and their continued cooperation together. Can be that in some ways they found their muse, which opens up an interesting digression that despite whoever the talents involved in any band, we're not just talking about Motörhead here, that the opinion of a competent and sympathetic outside producer can make all the difference. In recent years, look at the quality of stuff Deep Purple have put out since they have been working with Bob Ezrin. Just saying. And I'm sure we can all list thousands of other examples. I was going to say what happened to Iron Maiden when they stopped working with Martin Birch, but I think certainly No Prayer for the Dying, which I think is commonly seen as one of the clunkers in their catalogue, was recorded with him at the helm. But never mind. The exception proves the rule, or something like that. But no, okay. This is top-notch Motörhead. Really, really, really. And I think the band they've been established together for best part of a decade now as a three-piece. They've been slowly, getting more or less critical acclaim, but well, yes, to some extent, critical acclaim, and commercially they were never going to climb much higher, but they had more than enough support out there to ensure the success of their albums and their tours. But it's the songs here. It's the songs that stand out. There's really, really good ideas. Really good arrangements, really tight arrangements, really compelling arrangements, dynamic arrangements, great playing, and just from start to finish. And it's over 40 minutes, which for Motörhead is quite a long record, but it goes by very, very quickly. Yeah. What more can I say? Is it as good as Bastards? Well, I don't know how we're measuring it. Is it, for me personally, will it topple Bastards? Maybe not quite. I don't know. It's close though. It really is. It's certainly the best thing they've done since Bastards, I think. And they've had some strong stuff in between. They really have, with the exception of perhaps Hammered. But no, this is great stuff. And to be honest, this was recorded 2004. It was 29 years into their career as a band. There weren't too many of their contemporaries or rivals putting stuff out of this quality. 20 years, 29 years after they first formed or they first recorded, there were some. Some are still doing it. But, it's diminishing returns in terms of numbers of bands that can continue consistently with this type of quality. Anyway, there you have it. Absolutely fantastic. Love it. Great return to form. And this will be continued. We're entering the home straight, but we still have a few to go. All right. What do you think? You agree with me? Yes? No? Feel free to comment, to like, to share, and to subscribe, and all those good things. And until next time, I thank you for your indulgence. I wish you well. And Maçhonquèrre.